Hey, what's up YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. In this video, we are going to be assembling a pretty big product that I bought, something that I think is going to be able to continue my automotive fabrication and allow me to start making some products that I can, design, build, and sell. And that is a plasma cutting table. So if you're here from my car channel where I built this 280Z, I want to make parts for the car. I also want to make some other garage organization products and just be able to design them up and cut them out on my own plasma table and then assemble them and then hopefully sell them. So in order to do that, I bought a plasma cutting table, and in this video we are going to assemble that table. The plasma cutter I bought is the Prime Weld Cut 60. It's more on the budget friendly end of plasma cutters. There's much more expensive plasma cutters out there, but this one has great reviews and also great customer service for its price point. So to save a little money and go with a product that has already proven customer satisfaction, I went with this Prime Weld and hoping for the best. I ran a full new air setup, which we can talk about later in the video, but it's a whole ordeal with a air dryer system. And all of the boxes for the plasma cutter are over here. This is some cutting fluid. This is a box from Langmuir. This is the water table. And this is, I'm assuming, all of the square tubing and the rails that are needed to put this table together. So this is going to be more of a high level overview build. I'm not going to go super in depth. I'm going to touch on the high points of what it takes to build a table. And I also have quite a few personal touches or modifications I'm going to do to it. One of them being in my opinion, a pretty nice water table drainage system and a fill system. So we'll go over that probably at the end or potentially in a whole nother video. But in this video, we're going to focus on getting this table built and see where that takes us. So I will see you in a little bit when I start getting some of these things unboxed and can give you another update. All right, so I've got the big boxes broken down, the tall one where all the square tubing was in, and the one other big heavy box, and that had a bunch of little boxes, but they're all labeled into their own parts things. So I'm gonna leave them in their boxes for now until we get the instructions out. I've seen a lot of people build this table and they utilize another table to kind of act as, a way to float the legs to make it easier to get everything in square. So I brought this table into the garage to go ahead and do that. Should make it easier, and we won't unbox the water tray or water table part of it until the very end when that's necessary. So I guess I'm going to dive into the instructions and see what parts I need to get out first. Hey, just wanted to get you up to speed with everything we've done so far. It looks like we've done a lot, but really this did not take too long. First couple steps were assembling the casters into the bottom of the tubes. That was pretty simple and easy. And then just getting all of these tubes organized and then mounted in the correct position, which takes a little bit of time because they are kind of side specific, and same with the legs. So just making sure everything was put in the right spot took a little bit of time, but not really that long, and just following the diagram online on their website to help you through it. But this hasn't taken too long, and having it on this table really helped keep it square. And so far we've made sure that the distance between there and there is dead on with the front. So the lower rails are perpendicular to the upper rails. So I just got done telling you how they were parallel. These bars were parallel to each other. So the distance between this leg and this leg was the same back there, but it was out of square. And how I measured that was I just put the tape over on this corner and measured it to here, got a measurement, and then I crisscrossed it to this side and got a measurement. They didn't have you do this in the instructions, but you know, this is kind of how you make sure things are square. You measure from corner to corner. And mine was off by 1/2 inch, even though my 2 measurements I mentioned earlier were spot on. And so I loosened my bolts and did some tapping around, and now I've got it parallel, 2 measurements match, and it's square. So they didn't have you check for square in the instructions, and mine was off by 1/2 inch. So that might be a little tip to check that too, because just a little bit of work and I was able to get it square. So just an FYI. Okay, a couple steps later, we've got the Y-axis rails out and the bearing blocks, these red things, installed onto this, I don't know, support. So now this slides on the Y-axis. Nothing is tight yet. And we are putting these brackets onto this tube here. They're just loosely installed, and we're about to bring the Y-axis pipe up and install it to the top half of this. See the bolt holes? Washer?
I was just gonna go put the other bolt so you didn't have to hold. All of our bolts are probably supposed to go this way.
Well, it's been a couple hours later. I can't remember the last part we left off with, but I've got the Y axis and the Z axis installed. Not too many hiccups, a couple mishaps on my part where a bearing block was spun 90 degrees, so I had to take off some bolts and lift the tube and slide that off and reposition it, but it's going pretty smoothly so far. I'm to the point where I'm adjusting these bearing blocks to get all of the bearings rolling against this piece of tubing here. And I came across this scratch in this top rail. You can hear my fingernail hit it. It's got a pretty good high spot there, which is unfortunate. So it is unfortunately kind of going to be just barely touching. It might not even hit this bearing, but I've got to take a file to that and smooth it out. It's tough to see. You can kind of see it there the best. So we'll clean that up. Not really going to complain about it. No sense in that for this little minor of an issue. Otherwise, the tubes, I did look at them before I installed them because, you know, those are the important ones that your axis are sliding against. I made sure that there weren't any big dents or like being twisted or anything like that. But I didn't see that one when I was looking at them, so we'll clean that up. All right, day 2 of the plasma table build. Last night before we called it quits, we ended with installing the lead screws on both the X and Y axis. Nothing difficult really about doing that. It's just all a bit time consuming with all of these little screws and nuts and washers that have to be installed. And then when we install these mounts, we've got to make sure they're square, both against this plate and straight up and down vertically in comparison to this top rail. So all of that, we've been using, you know, this a lot, and that square over there to do this, making sure everything's straight. And yeah, otherwise it's pretty time consuming, just reading through the instructions and then finding the hardware. I will say you want to try and label and lay out the hardware. That'll make it easier to grab the bag that you need. And Luckily or nicely, they do label the bags with numbers. So it'll say like bag 23, bag 24, etc. The only thing is some of the bags, the lettering has been worn off, so you can't read what bag it is. So you just kind of have to guess, and there's some other information that can kind of help you. But that's where we're at so far. I'm going to open up the laptop. The next step is to, I believe, install the XAxis motors that drive these lead screws. Hey, well, this is the table so far. I had to move the plasma table onto a smaller workbench table because I got to the part in the instructions where I was putting on the gussets, and because they came over so far, that bigger table wasn't allowing me to install them. So we downsized the table and got all the gussets on. The gussets went pretty smoothly, but they are held together with self-tapping screws, and so that did take some time and a lot of chips on the floor, and you got to make sure that it's flat against the tubing, and that's kind of tough to do when you're drilling, trying to create a hole with the self-tapper. So used a lot of clamps to hold it all together, and we got through it. I'm on to the part where we're going to start looking at the control box and doing whatever the instructions say for that. So it's moving along pretty good. Well, got another update for you here. After I got all of the gussets installed, some of the next parts of the build were to actually tighten the clamps that hold the lead screws on to the motors back there. And then once we did that, there were some other brackets that we had to tighten, such as the X-axis over there. And then we were able to turn it on after we got all the wires plugged in and move the X-axis all the way up to the front and to the right, and got it bottomed out on these plates here on each side. At first, this side was about 1/4 inch off, and so I just manually turned the lead screw to get this end all the way up so that now they're moving in parallel with each other. Yeah, once we did that, everything was pretty much done as far as assembly. And now what I'm doing is, rather than screwing the two trays together and using the gasket sealer to seal them together for no leaks, I'm going to actually TIG weld it together. It should be pretty easy because it's just two pieces of thin metal that are butting up next to each other. And so I can even just use the TIG welder and just kind of just run it across it and melt the two together. I shouldn't need any filler rod either. I already did a little bit here, but I'm sure the GoPro is not going to be able to pick it up. And it's going pretty smoothly. So I've just got it clamped. I ground the inside of those lips on both of them. Ground the outside of the lips. When I say ground, I mean like sanded them up, scuffed them. And then I also used paint thinner to clean them up because this bed is pretty oily when it got shipped to me. But I did go ahead and screw down the plates to the bracing with the supplied screws. They have little gaskets on them. And then I also used the gasket sealant that they sent you or send to go under the gaskets as well, just for some extra sealant there so that it's not just the rubber making the contact. We've got some silicone under there. So I am going to complete welding this up. I did get the seam fully welded. I did not need any filler rod actually to do that. So just running the torch over the entire thing and just using a very fine eye to make sure there's no pinholes left over. But I can't water test it today because I used the gasket sealer under those self-tapping screws in all these locations, and that takes 24 hours to cure. So I do need to water test it still, but right now I am in the thick of it as far as wiring this machine torch. Actually, it's not the machine torch, it's rather the Cut 60 CNC port in the back of it to plug in or work with the control box. So we've got all these pins. I need to figure out which pins I need to wire up and get them pinned in there, which I need a very precise soldering gun that I don't really have. I have more of like a bigger style gun, so we'll see how that works. But we're gonna end it for this video, but I can't end it without at least showing you that it works and it moves around. We'll do wiring and next steps in future videos, but as far as like the assembly of the table, it is assembled and it's working. We've just got some fine tuning to do to get everything else working together, get the water table plumbed in and done. I guess one part of the assembly that I'm not going to be doing is doing the drains. That's going to be a whole nother thing for me. I'm going to do some other like style type drain that's a bit bigger, that'll utilize a bigger hole. So that'll be kind of cool and it'll plumb into that bucket. But enough talking. I guess I'll show you guys it moving. This is the fire control system. So we'll move the X-axis to the left. It's moving. We'll bring it closer to us, the Y. And I guess we can do the Z. And it can move a lot faster than that. I'm just on like the middle speed, 100 IPM. So yeah, it's moving around. Now we got to get to the point where the torch can be hooked up to the Z and all the other things that I talked about. So the plasma table is getting there. It's not totally done yet for me to be cutting metal. But soon we will have our first cut coming up soon, and it should be something pretty cool. So thanks for watching. I see you guys in the next one, and enjoy your rest of your day.